Creativity can feel so freaking hard to sustain. There's all these frameworks around working every day, just doing 10 minutes a day or 100 words. There's the 100-day project. But all of these systems are based on a linear sense of productivity, that if you just put in the same amount of effort every single day consistently, then all will fall into place. I used to think that the creative blocks I had were my fault and that I just needed to force myself into a linear, masculine based productivity system in order to move forward on projects and do things right. It turns out that this really wasn't working for me or my own energy, and it just led to this cycle of pushing myself, burning out, completely giving up and going back, and then restoring myself to start on that cycle again. What if there were a healthier way to integrate this cyclical nature of the creative process so that we build in the whole cycle of living, death, rebirth every single month? Today in this video, I'm going to talk about the moon and how we can use the moon's cycles throughout the month to guide our creative process. The moon, as we know, is in the sky every single night, and it is actually reflecting sunlight. And as the moon rotates, it goes through this whole cycle every 29 and a half days. So each of the 8 moon phases lasts about 3 to 4 days. So how can the moon help you find your creative rhythm? We can look to the moon as a mirror, a reflection, not only of light, but also of us, illuminating our subconscious, and connect its phases to our own interiority to deepen our own connections to creativity. Since creative ideas often come from the quiet moments, the dreams, the subconscious, everything that lies under the surface, we can't always go down a checklist and just execute. Instead, we can work with that lunar cycle to give us permission to really receive inspiration, to take a step forward, to act, and then to celebrate, share, and reflect on what all happened and what we can do for the next cycle. Ultimately, the moon is a tool for our inner wisdom. Calendars used to be lunar. In fact, it's very prevalent in Asian culture, and my dad still celebrates his birthday every year based on the lunar calendar. So the actual date that we celebrate is different every single year. It can help us connect more to our bodies and our inherent nature because we can see time outside of this linear scope and see it as more of a spiral or a cycle, and accept that the creative process is like that too. So instead of thinking, I should be creating constantly, I need to be creating every single day, you can reconsider this to align with the moon, which says, sometimes you're planting ideas, sometimes you're working intensely, and sometimes you're just fully resting. With the moon, you can revisit the same creative challenges at different cycles, like a spiral, but each time with more experience. You might be wondering, how do I know what phase of the moon it is? So of course you could look outside and tell by the shape, but you can also look at NASA. NASA.gov has the current phase of the moon and what each moon phase looks like. You can look at moongiant.com, or you can add a phases of the moon calendar to your Google Calendar, which is what I do. And then you can see throughout the month when all of the phases are. This is a moon zine that I made of each of the 8 moon phases. So I'll be going through that as we talk about the lunar cycle. So first up, we have the new moon, which is a time to dream of possibility. So this new moon is when there's no light shining on the moon. We're really feeling very inward. We're planting the seeds. We're attending to our internal state. We're setting intentions. We're receiving and sparking our imagination. We're dreaming and we're hoping. Creatively, this is a really good time to seed new ideas, maybe do some research of anything that sparks your curiosity. You can make a mood board for a project that you've been dreaming about, or just things that reflect your current internal state right now, maybe certain colors or textures that you're really into. And you can perhaps go to a bookstore, flip through magazines, take a walk through nature, just things that are really in the realm of receiving and letting yourself be fully open and seeing what comes up. Next up, we have waxing crescent. So this is the second moon phase, and the light starts to shine from the right. And this is the phase where we're beginning with an idea. So we received all sorts of ideas during the new moon. We're full of inspiration. And then this is the time where we can funnel down to something that we're most excited about, most passionate about, and carry it forward with a small step. It's important not to give ourselves too much pressure during this step. We want to start gently and just see what it goes. But this is often creative's favorite phase. It's that sweet, sweet beginning, that starting a new notebook feeling. And so it's easy to become addicted to this phase, but it's just one phase. So, what we can do with this phase is consider what is a defined idea that I have that I could accomplish something that I'd be happy about within the next month. Ideally, we want by the end of the lunar cycle to have something that we're excited about and ready to either continue and carry forward or to share and release and be done with. Once you have an idea, you can start a project plan if it's pretty involved. You can start on studies or really simple thumbnails and sketches if it's a more visual art piece. You can start with the plans and take small steps. Just see how things go. Next up, we have first quarter. So this is when the light has shone halfway across the moon. And this is the time when we're moving through obstacles. We're really getting started now. We're getting in the thick of it. Perhaps this is day 3 or 4 of you working on your project, and maybe it's not as fun anymore. Maybe the excitement has worn off. You're in it, and now you're feeling some of the challenges or some of the growth edges between you and your expectations or perhaps taste for what the project should be and where it actually seems to be going. Personally, this is the hardest phase for me. There's a lot of mental activity during this phase where you feel like you can't do it. You feel imposter syndrome. You feel like you need to be a student more, practice more. You don't have what it takes to accomplish this idea in your head. So you want to procrastinate or you want to go back to studying. You get an impulse to sort of recede. So the biggest ask of the first quarter is how can we move through these obstacles? How can we not go back but go forward in a way that still feels something that we're capable of doing? This is a time to set healthy habits, cultivate the discipline that you need. Maybe try pivoting or refining your idea if it feels not thoroughly possible, and overcoming any mental blocks that you have. Some examples of these are that you could refine any sketches or thumbnails that you have to be ones that are perhaps in line with your style or maybe not as much of a divergence from your previous work. You could start practicing challenging elements. Say that you want to have a very detailed, involved part of your art piece that you're not comfortable with. You can really hone in and just practice those things for a day or two. You can pick one very small, defined part of your piece to work with, maybe the intro to your essay or one corner of a painting, and focus on that and try to exclude the entire rest of the piece for now, just so you can move through and keep working on it. You can leverage Pomodoro timers or do body doubling sessions. I find that these are really helpful for me just to sit down and make sure that I'm doing the work. It's really good for cultivating discipline and having accountability and seeing other people working as well. And you can add constraints. Perhaps you're really overwhelmed with all the color that you've been wanting to use, so you pare it down to 2 or 3 colors. Perhaps you set a word count limit. You only want to write 1,000 words. Any sort of constraints can be really helpful to ease the burden of decision making and of expecting the highest potential from yourself. The most important thing about first quarter is to accept and realize that resistance is normal. Resistance is built into the creative process. We're going to feel it, And our job is to figure out how we want to move through it in a way that still feels good for us and our practice. And it's just at that edge of growing, but not so much that we're overwhelmed and hating ourselves throughout. Next, we have waxing gibbous. This is the phase right before the full moon, and this is when we've moved through first quarter. We're still in the project, hopefully, and as we've shedded our major obstacles, whatever we've learned from that first quarter can help us fine tune our approach. So maybe you worked on a part of your painting or essay and you've made some realizations that can shape the entire rest of the project. You can start to move towards completing the entirety of the project or move towards the final draft of something. You can start adding layers of depth or detail and try to edit or refine everything that you've learned and integrate it into the final piece. This is also a chance to amplify what's working. Let's say that you found that you've been writing and you've been integrating a lot of really good quotes, so you want to keep doing that throughout the whole piece. Or you found that you've been finding that the words resonate a lot more when you incorporate personal anecdotes from your own life. So you decide to find other places where that might be a good fit. The first quarter might have been a lot about our mental activity and moving through the obstacles there. This one, it's still about keeping on going with our project, but perhaps we have forgotten to take care of our body. So it's a good time to focus on our health, make sure that we're eating right, make sure that we're exercising, and take care of our physical self so that we can keep on going. All right, now we're at full moon. I think we all know what full moon looks like in the sky because it's just a big, beautiful circle of light. People have a lot more energy during this time, and it is a time of celebration, of harvest, of releasing emotionally anything that we've been building up in ourselves, and really embodying the celebration of it all. During this time, you have peak confidence, and you can use that feel good energy to get into the creative flow. You can trust all the planning and the practice and the refinement that you've done in the previous phases to really get into it. If you have any instincts coming up, this is a good time to trust them. And if you feel like your piece is going in a different direction and you want to follow that call, this is a good time to trust yourself and let yourself be carried away with where the art wants to take you. Full moon is also when we might be more compelled to work at night. If you're usually a morning person, maybe you want to carry forward at night to keep on going. And it can also be a time to step back, be grateful for all that you've created, feel really proud of it, and luxuriate in that feeling. In waning gibbous phase, the phase right after the full moon, this is when we want to share and give thanks. So all of the phases after this is not as much about work, but more about reflection. Creatively, what this means is to give your gifts to the world. If you're fully ready to share and you finish your work and you feel in a good spot, maybe that means sharing the piece with a friend or a loved one. If you're still working on it, maybe it's sharing some glimpses of your studio space or of your work in progress. You can also document anything that you've been learning. You can write notes about your process. It doesn't even need to be actively shared right now, but you can internally reflect and prepare for it to be eventually shared as well. Perhaps this means writing in your journal, writing in your newsletter, starting to open to receiving again so that you receive any downloads or messages and wisdom about what you learned during this creative project so far and what you might carry forward with you as well. The third quarter is about letting go. This is a time where we're really feeling at the crossroads of working, moving forward, and then being called to fully surrender. We're maybe going into organization mode or research mode, more behind the scenes work and not as much here I am working, here I am being active. This is a good time to really hone in on any lessons that you've learned, deepen any reflections that you may have had over the past few moon phases. Ask yourself, what did you learn? What worked? What didn't work? What might you want to try next time? How can you understand your creative process better? Any difficult thoughts or feelings that came up that you might want to treat more kindly or work with better next time? It's not as much about how am I going to keep making art and more about how can I better understand myself so that I can keep showing up to make art. Third quarter might also be a good time to start to organize. Maybe you want to put materials away for the future. Maybe you want to sort your materials so you're better prepared for the next cycle. Or maybe you want to pause and do some more research to better enhance the work that you'll resume in the next cycle. Now, the last of our phases is waning crescent. This is when we want to fully rest and prepare for the next moon phase where the new moon will come again and we can dream again. But before dreams comes sleep. This is a good time to literally sleep if you'd like, or creatively just find ways to fully relax and restore. These can be going on hikes in nature, taking long walks, going to the museum, going to a bookstore, browsing magazines or fun books. You might want to watch movies, have deep conversations with friends. Above all, you want to fully allow yourself to rest and believe that that rest is necessary for you to keep creating. I think this is such an underrated part of the creative cycle. We think that we need to be in it every single day, but fully letting yourself rest honestly allows you to feel that force and that excitement again to keep going. All right, that was the 8 moon phases and how you can use each moon phase to align with your creativity and support your practice. I invite you to try this experiment for a month or so as a framework. As you do it, you might want to notice which moon phases feel most natural and good in your body. Perhaps you're really loving the energy of the full moon, or perhaps you really love that dreamy project state of new moon and waxing crescent. I'd encourage you to keep a journal or a log just so you can track your moods and how you were thinking or feeling over the month and see how that knowledge can help you go through future cycles. And also remember, you don't have to follow this to a T to align with the current moon phase in the sky. The most important thing is to integrate the cycle of birthing, starting, refining, releasing, and resting. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions about aligning your creativity with the moon, please comment below. I'd love to read them and respond. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And I have a bunch of moon zines in my shop if you'd like one to support your practice. I also write a weekly newsletter for creative practice and authenticity. So if you'd like that, please subscribe through the link in the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.